Well, hello, and a very warm welcome today to a programme which is going to be all about making pâtés and starters, first courses. I think the best description of a first course is an appetiser. Whether it's a chicken liver pâté, squid served with a spicy chilli jam, or souffled sole creams. All these starters are designed to arouse your appetite and draw you into the fullest pleasures of eating. But we're going to start with a traditional coarse country pâté. Now, in my bowl here, I've got the meats all prepared and I'll just run through them for you. First of all, I've got a pound of quite fatty belly of pork, and you need the fat there because that's what's going to make the pâté moist. You're not going to eat the fat, and I'll explain that later. But at the moment, let me just tell you that you need fat belly of pork, and it's been coarsely chopped in the processor. Next to that, I've got 12 ounces of veal, and this has also been chopped in the processor quite coarsely. And then I've got 8 ounces of pork liver and 10 ounces of streaky bacon, and the streaky bacon has also been chopped coarsely. You can actually make this from ready minced meats if you've got a butcher who's willing to do it for you, but it doesn't really take long to chop them in the processor. Now, those are the meats. I'm just going to mix them together with a nice big fork here to get them well blended. And then the pâté is going to have lots of other interesting ingredients. Right, now, first of all, being a pork pâté, it's wonderful, flavoured with juniper berries. And I've got 20 juniper berries here, ready to be coarsely crushed. And along with them, I'm going to put some pepper, and that's 20 peppercorns. And what we need to do now is just crush them, not too finely, quite coarsely. It's quite nice when you slice the pâté to see the little bits of juniper and pepper. So that's about right. Now that can go in next. After that, a bit escaped here, so we'll get that in. Some more flavourings. Here I've got 2 cloves of garlic crushed, a heaped teaspoon of rock salt. This is powdered mace, and this is 1/4 of a rounded teaspoon. And here, a nice big heaped teaspoon of chopped thyme. We'll give the flavourings a mix. And what you need to do is when you're making pâté, you really need to do it quite well in advance. Preferably the day before or the night before, because what's next going to happen is all these flavours are going to be marinated with more flavours. And what they are is, first of all, I've got 4 fluid ounces of dry white wine, and then I've got 1 fluid ounce of brandy, 1 fluid ounce of brandy. That gets mixed into the meats, and you're going to probably spend about 5 minutes mixing that, and I'm not going to spend all that time, but just to show you what needs to happen. Couldn't be simpler. Then you cover it with a cloth, put it in a cool place and leave it preferably overnight, but certainly several hours, so that all those flavours can penetrate the meat. Now I'll show you the next stage. So we've got some here that was put together yesterday, and all you do now is put it into a tureen to cook it. Now, this is a 3-pint tureen. This is a rather nice one, and this can go to the dining table if you want to serve it to guests. But you can also make it in a 2-pound loaf tin. So if you don't have a tureen, you can make it in that. And all you do now is you just pop the whole lot into the tureen, like that. squash it down and smooth it out. And then we're just going to put a couple of little things on the top to make it look pretty, but also give flavour. And that is some bay leaves. I've got 5 here, and they can just go in a little row like that. And then what we'll do is put a few juniper berries in the middle, make a little heap there, a few there at the end, and a few there. Now, to cook the pate, it goes into a shallow roasting tin like that, and you add about 1 inch of boiling water. And then it goes into a preheated oven, 150 degrees. Don't put a lid on, and give it 1 3/4 hours cooking. So here we go then. Here's our pate straight out of the oven. And this is the important bit I want to show you now. In fact, what I'll do is just take it out of its little water bath first. Like that. And then you will see now that around the edges, it's sort of shrunk away from the edges quite a lot. And you'll see there's quite a lot of fat there. Now, normally you would be tempted to pour the fat off, but you mustn't. You must let it cool with the fat all round it, because this is what's going to keep it moist. And then when you serve it, you can scrape the fat off. You don't need it anymore after that. But it's just very, very important to keep the whole thing moist right the way through. This needs to be cooled down now. And then if you want to, you can just put the lid on, keep it in the fridge when it's cool, and serve it. But sometimes it becomes a bit crumbly. If you want to cut it in slices, then the best thing to do is after it's cooled, you put on a sheet of foil like that, and then on top of the sheet of foil, you put some weights on. And I use my scale weights, but you need some heavy objects like scale weights. And then you can put the whole thing in the fridge. Don't forget, I'm doing it now while it's hot, but you should be doing it when it's cold. You put the whole lot in the fridge, and if you leave it for 24 hours, the weights will press the pate down and make it easier to cut in slices.
Serve the pate with some crusty bread and cornichon, and then close your eyes and you could be in France. Still with pates, these are individual chicken liver pates made with cognac and served with a sweet and sour red onion salad. This is the easiest pate I've ever made. Smoked mackerel pate, simply whizzed in the processor with ricotta cheese and garnished with capers. I think the sublime taste of smoked fish is perfect for an appetizer.
Well, I'm now going to show you one of my all-time favourite first courses. Now, the recipe is called Souffled Arbroath Smoky Creams, and you start off with these beautiful things here. They're called arbroath smokies. You might have to hunt around to get them, but what they are is small haddock, and they've been smoked in such a way that they're quite intensely flavoured of smoke, and they're also cooked, so you don't have to do any cooking, you just actually heat them up when you want to eat them. But we're going to make them into these lovely little soufflés, and 2 of those like that usually weigh, when you buy them, approximately 12 ounces. And then what you do is you separate the flesh away from the bones and skin, which comes away really easily after smoking, and you end up with about 10 ounces of the fish. And then you start the recipe quite a long time ahead, and what you do is you put the flesh into a food processor, and then you start off by blending it almost to a puree. So we'll start off and do that. Switch on. If you can do it the day before, this bit, it's best, but if not, you need to do it at least 6 hours ahead of when you want to start cooking. Now what I'm going to do is add some seasoning. I've got some crushed rock salt first, then some freshly milled pepper, and now I'm going to add this, which is 2 lightly beaten eggs. They go in next. And then we're going to switch on again until we get it quite fine now. And then when that becomes quite a smooth pulp, switch the motor off, transfer it to a bowl, cover it and leave it for at least 6 hours or preferably overnight. And then after the mixture has been thoroughly chilled, what you do is you bring it back to the processor, pop the puree back in, because it's going to have something else incorporated now, and that's half a pint of double cream. But it is between 8 people, so that's our excuse. And then, sitting on my board there, I noticed something I should have put in earlier and I didn't, and that is freshly grated nutmeg. That should have gone in with the salt and pepper, but I forgot, as we sometimes do. So, a nice good grating here of freshly grated nutmeg, which is going to add a touch of flavour. And then now a final whiz. There we are. Couldn't be simpler, couldn't be easier. What I'm now going to do with it is put it back into the jug and then show you the next stage. And they're going to go in little ramekin dishes that are lined with smoked salmon. And all you do is take pieces of smoked salmon, and the ramekins have just been very, very lightly buttered. You can trim it if you want to, but I think it's quite nice when it sort of flops over the edge a little bit. And then what we do is we fill them up right up to the top with the mixture. And the beauty of this recipe is that you can do all this in advance, and they can be covered with cling film and put in the fridge, and then 30 minutes before you want to serve them, what you do is you have the oven preheated to 190 degrees. Just like we made the pate, you pour in some hot water into the tin, about 1 inch, and then you pop them into the oven, and they'll take exactly 30 minutes to cook. Now once they are cooked, you've got to go pretty quickly, and what you do is you have your plates lined up. I think it's nice to serve them with a bit of watercress, and then use a small palette knife, just slide it round so that you can loosen the whole thing. And then this is the tricky bit. What you need to do next is hold the ramekin in the cloth, because it's quite hot, and then it's going to go very briefly onto the palm of your hand and then back down onto the plate, like that. And that is our souffled arbroath smoky cream, and it just needs one more thing. When we made the egg programme, we did foaming hollandaise. Do you remember that? And I like to serve them with a little bit of foaming hollandaise. And all that lovely smokiness and butteriness is absolutely wonderful. You won't be disappointed.
There is an alternative to the arbroath smoky creams that we also serve in the football club at special functions. These are souffled sole creams. They're served with a champagne sauce and topped with a little salmon caviar and a sprig of chervil.
Well, the next first course I want to show you is a recipe called char-grilled squid with chilli jam. It's a brilliant recipe. I'm very grateful to my friend Alison Yetman, who serves it in her restaurant in Norfolk, but has given me the recipe to share with you. Now we're going to start off by making chilli jam. It's a kind of a double recipe, this one, because although we're serving the chilli jam with the squid, it's also wonderful with other things. It's good with grilled chicken, it's lovely with sausages, it's lovely with any fish at all. So we're kicking off with this wonderful thing called chilli jam. And you start off with a blender, and you want 1 pound of tomatoes roughly chopped. And I've got them in 2 bowls here because we're going to do different things with them. Half the tomatoes are going to go into the blender, and you don't need to skin them, just roughly chop them like that. Leave the skins on, and then lots of other lovely flavourings are going in there. First of all, 2 cloves of garlic peeled and roughly chopped. Then I've got ginger, about a 1-inch chunk of ginger, and that's just been peeled and roughly chopped. This is 1½ chilies. You can use 2 if you want it really hot, but I like 1½, and these have been de-seeded and chopped. And then the next ingredient, which now is luckily really easy to get hold of, and that is Thai fish sauce. We're going to put a tablespoon of that, which will give the right amount of saltiness. And then I'm just going to switch the blender on, because what I want now is for that to become a puree. So we'll switch the blender on. What I'm going to do with this now, which is pureed just how I want it to be, is pour that into my pan here, and then the next thing I want is the other half of the tomatoes. And what's going to happen to those is they're exactly the same, just roughly chopped, skin on. They're just going to be chopped roughly so that half the sauce has got to be smooth and it's got a little bit of texture in it. So we'll just see to those now. So the way to do that is to just switch it on and off. That's it, that's how I want it. Now that's going to go and join the rest over here. And then a few more ingredients. 2 fluid ounces of good quality red wine vinegar. And this is a really good one, dark red one that I've got here. And then a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar as well. And if you think that's a lot of vinegar, don't worry, because the next ingredient is going to be 8 ounces of demerara sugar. And what's going to happen now is we're just going to stir all that together, bring it up to simmering point, and then as soon as it comes up to simmering point, turn the heat down and let it simmer for about 40 minutes. And what you want to achieve after 40 minutes is that the mixture is reduced down to half its volume, so it will have thickened quite a lot. While the 40 minutes is happening, you need to just stir it a couple of times. Just give it a stir to stop it sticking on the bottom. And sometimes you need to sort of scrape down the sides a bit and skim off a bit of scum if there is any. So here it is then. This is chili jam, and if you pour it from the pan into a sterilised jar, it'll keep in the refrigerator covered for about 3 months. And we're going to use about 1/3 of it today, but the rest will keep to serve with other things. Now we're going to deal with the squid. Now squid has come on an awful lot. You can now buy really young, tender squid in every supermarket, and it's already prepared for you, so you don't have to do a lot of preparation. What happens is it comes with the young little sacs like this, and the tentacles are usually sort of tucked inside it. And what we need to do to char grill it is take a piece like that and then just cut it. And open it out like the pages of a book. Flat, like that. And then I've got a little paring knife here, but you can use any knife. And just gently run the knife across the inside, make a crisscross pattern, but you have to be gentle, otherwise you cut right the way through. I've done that several times. Then what you do is we'll take 2 pieces here, and then you put oil on it, and you have a hot ridge grill. And it's got to be really, really searing hot, and you have no oil on the grill. The grill is heated dry. You just put the oil on the squid. And then finally what we'll do is we'll put some seasoning of salt and pepper on it. And then off we go. To test if the grill is hot, you sort of put your hand over it, and if you can't hold your hand over it for long, it's hot enough. And then in you go with the pieces of squid. And we want to cook them, and they're not going to take long to cook. They're only going to take about 2 minutes altogether, perhaps 1 minute on each side. And then you can put more on. In fact, we'll put some tentacles on now so you can have a look at the tentacles. Now I'm going to turn it over onto the other side, and you can see the little golden char marks there, and we'll give it another minute, and then remove it to a plate and carry on. We've got a pound of squid there altogether, which is enough for a first course for 4 people, and then carry on until all the squid is cooked. You serve the squid on a bed of rocket leaves, and if you want to serve it warm, you can serve it warm, and you can actually warm up the chili jam, but I think it's quite nice to serve it cold as a salad. And also I find the advantage of that is if you're serving a starter, then it can all be prepared. And then just before it goes to the table, what you do is you just drizzle a little bit of this over it. Just a little bit here, a little bit there, over it. And that is tender and delicious, and that is char grilled squid with chili jam.